Well, good evening. I'm Alan Jackson, and welcome to Nashville. Now that the election's over, change, truth, and get this, common sense, it seems to be blooming everywhere. It's in with the good and out with the people and policies that have been undermining the foundations of our nation. Well, tonight we have one of the good guys. He's a man on a mission. He already has an impressive history nationally and in television, but most important to him is his role as a father. He's determined to help other fathers and mothers by creating a better, safer environment for their children to grow up in. It brings me great pleasure to welcome back my good friend, Kirk Cameron. Kirk, welcome to the show.
Alan, thank you so very much. You're one. If I'm a good guy, you're one of the great guys. You're one of the men that I trust. I'm so thankful for you, and it's great to be a fellow Tennessean now that I've escaped from California. I've come to your great, beautiful state seeking asylum, and I hope to leave all my residual California behind.
Well, we will send you to language school so you learn how to say y'all.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I know you are delighted to have this change in America's leadership. You've called the election a referendum on wokeness and a wake-up call for parents. I'm with you, so tell us a bit more about what you think.
Well, I don't know about you, but frankly, I was stunned. I was shocked when the election fell the way that it did. And of course, no matter which way that it fell, I would have said, the sovereign God is in control. And I think that heaven's clocks have kept perfect time for the last 4 years. If Trump had been elected 4 years ago, I don't think the nation would have been this awake to all of the wokeness that has been going on. And now is a perfect time for us to have the air cover through the executive branch that will allow the foot soldiers on the ground, the family of faith, to do the work that needs to be done with the gospel, through the family, through the community, and hopefully see revival in our time. So I'm very excited and very hopeful. And at the same time, I know that political leaders don't solve our problems. We have a spiritual problem that requires a spiritual solution. And that's what you and I are all about.
Absolutely, I agree completely. You've made a very good point that this is an opportunity for parents to take back the role of bringing up their children. I think that's the way it should be. Parents are back in the driver's seat, it seems to me, and that has a lot of good implications, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. Now, listen, some parents don't want to be in the driver's seat, but if we believe in a vision of victory for the future, if we are going to get to that place where our children and our children's children are living in blessing and protection and opportunity and prospering in all the right kingdom kinds of ways here on this earth, well then, we've got to get back in the leadership position with our children's spirituality, with their education, with their morality, teach them about money, teach them about civics, teach them about everything from borders to military to foreign relations and everything else. And I think the Bible has something to say about all of those things because Jesus has all authority both in heaven and on earth. And he's praying that his kingdom comes and God's will is done on earth as it is in heaven. So through the power of the gospel, I think that we could see another great awakening in America if parents step back into the leadership roles with their kids.
I agree with you. It's not enough for there to be change in Washington. We have to bring change into our homes and our own spheres of influence. It's an important time, isn't it? We can't just be watching what's happening.
That's right. Alan, you and I talked before about the two kinds of people that are easy to spot. There's both reporters and reformers, and they're not the same thing. And by reporters, I don't mean literal journalists. I mean people who see bad stuff, they get sent a meme by a friend, and it's just outrageous, it's angering, and they pass it on to other people, just sort of spreading the outrage. But that doesn't often fix things. What we need is the reformers. Those are the ones who see the problems, and then they say, what could I do to creatively solve this problem and provide a more godly and good alternative? And I think that's what God has called us to be, reformers, which always starts with, of course, reforming myself first. And then that begins to work its way out into my home and my community, and then throughout the nation, and I believe even the world. That's called revival.
Absolutely. You know, I have traveled across the nation a bit in the last few months, and I think we tend to think of the church in terms of where we live, but in actuality, there's a church. The church in California is not different from the church in Tennessee. I know as an actor, you lived in California for quite a while, long enough to witness up close the troubling policies that much of the state was pushing. Well, now you've moved to Tennessee. Family, country, God, biblical values, they're a bit more forward here. You're not the only family making the move. There's a migration. Tell us a little bit about your experience in California, what you're seeing here, and then how we pray more effectively for the church to affect the entire nation.
Well, I think that California is one of the most beautiful states that God ever made. I think pound for pound, it perhaps has more to offer than any other in the union. Our weather, the sunshine, the beaches, the mountains. We have Yosemite, we have Napa Valley, we have San Diego. I mean, it's just stunning. And there are millions and millions of spirit-filled, Bible-believing, born-again, Great Commission Christians in California. However, there is absolutely an oppressive, dark spirit there that manifests through political power that has devastated our state in so many ways, and many are seeking asylum. When I look at the wildfires, this was another great example of what I consider, in my opinion, poor leadership and poor stewardship of resources. My house was packed up by my neighbor, because I live in Tennessee now, and it was all in his truck getting ready to drive away in case my house were going to get burned down. And there's 15,000 structures and no water in the fire hydrants, and the reservoirs are empty. We live by the ocean, for crying out loud. How about a desalination plant? We've got more water than any place else. We got the Pacific Ocean and all these rivers. And so I think, you know, ideas have consequences. Our worldview and who we're living for and what we're living for determines everything. And in fact, I don't think a lot of this was a mistake. I think they're too smart. I think that this is actually poor stewardship of resources that's not being directed for the good. And, you know, to be honest with you, I'm never going to change what a governor is going to do in a country. I probably don't have that kind of influence over those people in high places. But it does make me think, how is my leadership at home? How is my stewardship of resources in the spheres of influence that God has given me? I want to do a good job as a dad. I want to be faithful. If I'm writing a book for kids, or I'm making a children's television program, or I'm sharing a message at a church, I want to be faithful to steward these relationships and resources as best I can. Otherwise, I'm just a hypocrite, pointing the finger at others and pointing out the log in their, or speck in their eye, while I've still got the log in my own. And I think if we can all do that and start our critique on the inside and reform ourselves, we can then offer solutions to those in bigger spheres of influence, maybe even become people who get put in those positions of authority.
That's good coaching. Well, we're just getting started, so stay right where you are. We'll hear about Kirk Cameron's new show and his latest book. I think he has to work 20 hours a day. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back now with the author, actor, influencer, father, and all-around good guy, Kirk Cameron. Kirk, you have a new show, and for the parents and grandparents who are listening, it's been described as the modern-day Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It's called The Adventures of Iggy and Mr. Kirk. I understand the main characters are Iggy, the iguana, and Mr. Kirk. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
That's right. This is a brand new children's television show, and it's about time. It's finally a show for kids that is good for them, and it helps them become good human beings. Parents can feel great about putting their kids in front of it. So think of Sesame Street with adorable puppet animal characters meets Mr. Rogers. It's classic TV made for today's families, and every episode is wholesome and fun. It actually helps kids with their cognitive thinking. It helps them track storylines. It's not the mind-numbing stuff that's actually undermining biblical values, but it's faith-filled. And parents can feel great about this being something to support the values that they're teaching their kids. We have 20 episodes finished. They're absolutely magical, wonderful. I can't wait for you to see the trailer. And it's coming out February 18th on YouTube for free. We did that on purpose so that we can reach kids everywhere with what they need and with what parents can trust.
We've had some conversations around this. I was impressed. You decided to offer something far different from the woke messages in so much of today's children's entertainment. You're using clever dialogue, biblical truth, moral messages to teach the children. So it's really a tool for parents, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's a great way to encourage family watching of a TV show together, like we used to do. Remember when we used to all get together and we'd watch Little House on the Prairie, or we'd watch Happy Days, or we'd watch a show like The Waltons? Today, everybody is so fragmented on their own screens. And this is a show that encourages kids to ask questions, to think deeply, and apply the lessons that they learn. They're learning lessons like honesty and self-control and kindness. And all of this happens in a way that kids can understand because they'll relate to Iggy, the adorable little iguana, who's learning these lessons himself. And we have real kids in each episode as well, coming in through a computer, asking Mr. Kirk and Iggy questions. And there's a whole colorful cast of puppet creatures, including a vulture named Culture, who's always lying and deceiving Iggy into believing that right is wrong and wrong is right. And he's got to find his way through this moral mess to learn how to be a good little iguana.
Sounds like I need to watch this. You know, one of the features we've talked about is it's something that parents can trust. They won't have to worry about filtering through the trash talk and profanity that's pushed so many times in kids' programming. What else can we do to get the word out about your new program?
Well, first, go watch the trailer. Go to watchiggy.com. That's watchiggy.com. You could also go to Brave Books and see it there. But believe me, I know it's easy to oversell and underdeliver, but I don't think that's the case with this. This is maybe the most important thing that I've ever done with regard to making something for my own grandchildren. I am so proud of this, Alan, and I am so grateful to be a part of it. It's kids' TV done right, engaging their little imaginations for the good.
Well, there's one more thing. You have written another book, Born to be Brave, and I love the subtitle, How to Be a Part of America's Spiritual Comeback. I want to do that. Tell us a little bit about this project.
So this is a book that just came out a few months ago, and actually I'm going to be going around the country and unpacking its message. And really what it is a call to Christian courage and returning to a vision of victory. I think for too long, the church's vision of victory has been contained and confined to personal victory rather than cultural victory. And I think that whoever wants the future for our children and to create its culture the most is going to win it. When I think of the radical progressive left, they're playing the long game, and they have been for 50 years. They don't quit. They don't give up. And this encouragement that we have had because of the election recently is effectively a big stick that has just hit the hornet's nest of all the purple hair platoons and the alphabet armies. And now is the time when we are really going to need that second birth bravery. We're going to need that new creation courage to humble ourselves, turn our hearts back to God as individuals, families, communities, and a nation, and apply his principles from the Bible to all of our lives. And someone's going to win. It could be secular humanism, it could be Islam, it could be Christianity. And I believe that there's only one that is worth fighting for, and it's the one that brings blessing to everyone.
Well, Kirk, I couldn't agree with you more. I believe in personal salvation, but I also believe we have to take our Christianity into culture and make a difference. I hope you get a wonderful response to your book. You are a tireless trooper when it comes to spreading truth and encourage families across our nation. Keep up the wonderful work and stay in touch along the way.
I sure will. Thanks for being my friend, Alan, and thank you for all the great things that you do. I'm always inspired.
Well, it's an honor to stand together. When we come back, I'll have some more thoughts to add to this already productive discussion. Stay right where you are. Hey, I commend Kirk Cameron for stepping out into the middle of the fray, doing his part to give voice to truth with his shows and his books. For someone whose career is rooted in Hollywood, that is not an easy decision or position to take. I commend the new administration for saying there were only two genders, male and female. I'm grateful for that expression of authority in our lives, but to be completely honest, I'm a bit concerned that it didn't begin with a groundswell from within the church. That should not have been a first and foremost political declaration. That's a fundamental biblical value. It should have been so obvious and loudly reiterated from our churches that it would have infiltrated the political realms. The value of truth in our lives cannot be overestimated. We've been silent and timid for far too long. Proverbs 23:23, you may know the verse. It says, buy the truth and don't sell it. Get wisdom, discipline, and understanding. When you make a purchase, you trade something that's valuable to you for something that is more valuable. That's the imagery of that verse. He said there's nothing more valuable than the truth. Whatever you have to do to acquire the truth, do that and then never trade it. Well, in this tumultuous season where kingdoms are colliding, as Christ followers, let's do whatever it takes to acquire the truth, to be advocates for the truth, and never let go of that position. We'll be back in just a minute with your emails. I want to personally thank you for taking the time to send us your emails, your thoughts, opinions, and perspectives. We all look forward to reading them. They're one of the highlights on the program. Tori from New York wrote, I'm very excited about all the changes President Trump is making, but my family is still so divided. How do I celebrate the victories while still trying to witness to my family? Well, Tori, I think that is a universal issue, and it's not just about this current political cycle. You know, the reality is our families are not always unified or perfect. They always hold the same opinions. In fact, I know very few families who do. And I think one of the tactics of the enemy is to bring discouragement to us, even despair, because we see that our families are not all in just complete lockstep around every idea. You know, if we follow Jesus through the Gospels, everybody didn't agree with him. The disciples argued amongst themselves frequently about who was the greatest. So I think a family where there's a bit of a difference of opinions doesn't mean we're failing in our role. We keep praying for those that are further away from the Lord, encouraging those that are on a pathway towards him. And somewhere in that process, we grow ourselves. God's timing is my most consistent complaint with him, but I trust him at the end of the day. He's faithful. He has been in my family, and I believe he will be in yours. Finally, I never miss an episode of your preaching or your evening program. As a wife of a retired Green Beret, few people know just how humanitarian many of the missions are. They teach, they provide medical assistance, they ensure the very survival of some people. I know, for instance, my husband worked closely with the Kurd refugees. They are a mean fighting force and a humanitarian asset. Thank you for your coverage. That's Diane from Massachusetts. Diane, thank you for reminding us, not just the Green Berets, but our military have a lengthy history of bringing good to our world. They're not just a feared fighting force, they're an expression of compassion. We have rebuilt the nations that we have defeated on the battlefield. It's a unique part of American history, and it should be celebrated more frequently. I appreciate your reminder. Make sure to send your emails to comments@alanjacksonnow.com. If you missed the evening program, you can catch us on YouTube. The details are on the screen. From all of us here in Nashville, thank you for joining us tonight, and I pray you have a wonderful evening.